Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Body Bags. I'm your reviewer for today. I am the Night Walker from Horror Heaven77, and we're going to continue on with this week being the theme of the week is the Halloween franchise. And so, okay, now if you followed the whole week, we've gone up to this point. All right, we stopped with the original series, and now we're going to get into the Rob Zombie series. Okay, so we're going to talk about both Halloween and Rob Zombie's H2, Halloween 2. So pretty much considered by a lot of the fans, pretty much considered the bastard stepchild that nobody really wants to acknowledge. But okay, so let's see here. First of all, thoughts about the first movie. It's got elements that I like, but you're gonna have to understand something, okay? I mean, if you've watched any of these videos before, I've reviewed on this channel. I've reviewed 31. I've reviewed 3 from Hell. You know, I'm a Rob Zombie fan. Okay, I love Rob Zombie's music. I love his movies and everything else. I just don't think this is his finest hour. I'm sorry, but they have both of these movies have elements that I like, but just for me personally, okay, I know this is going to be very polarizing for a lot of people, as these movies are very polarizing for a lot of people. Okay, I know for the most part these are almost unanimously hated, but anyway, though, but these movies have elements I like, but just for me, my personal opinion, I think that Rob Zombie does a lot better when he is, creating his own material instead of trying to interpret somebody else's material. So there, I've said it. But like I said, these movies do have elements to them that I do like. And okay, so let's get started talking about it. Now, here's the thing, it's like we go back to, like around 2005, 2006, whenever. All right, Miramax, Harvey Weinstein, that scumbag, and all of them decide, well, okay, it's been a few years since Halloween Resurrection, and we want to do something with Halloween. Well, let's look at some of the new up and coming horror movie directors that are out there. Okay, who do we got? Well, these guys. Okay, we got Eli Roth. He's doing Hostel. We got James Wan. He helped create Saw. We got Alexandra Aja. And all this stuff. So who are like one of these new modern horror directors that we can get to maybe take a look at Halloween, see if they could do something with it? Well, there's Rob Zombie, who, he just had his big success with The Devil's Rejects. So they bring him in and they talk to him about, if he could do anything with Halloween, what would he do with it, and things like that. And apparently, Rob Zombie, proposed the idea of doing a remake. Now, when news of this first broke, I mean, this really upset the horror audience because, as far as everybody, if I seem to remember correctly, now I could be wrong about this, but if I seem to remember correctly, I think the first thing that was announced was that Rob Zombie was going to do a sequel to Halloween. He wasn't going to do a remake. He was just going to do a sequel, and I think everybody was just like, whatever. Okay, so, and then word got out. Well, Rob Zombie's supposed to be a diehard fan of the original movie, and he always wanted to contribute something to the Halloween franchise and things like that. And so he was going to do a sequel. That's what I seem to remember hearing at first. Then over time, it came out, well, no, Rob Zombie's not going to do a sequel. He's going to remake the original movie. But he's going to do pretty much like what John Carpenter did when John Carpenter remade The Thing. He's going to keep certain elements from the original movie, but it's going to be a completely different film. Well, that was the thing, I mean, even though people heard that, a lot of people just didn't feel like this movie needed to, the original. A lot of people just felt like this did not need to be remade. Everybody felt the original movie was fine. There was nothing wrong with it. It's, even after all these years, it still holds up. It's a well made, well done, horror film. It's not, based on gore and blood and guts and all that kind of stuff. The original movie is more based on creating tension, building suspense, trying to be genuinely scary horror film. And I think, now, I could be wrong about this too, though, but I think, for a lot of people, when it comes to horror films, I think that is considered a much more challenging thing to do, is to try to make a horror movie that is genuinely good and genuinely scary rather than just relying on blood and gore. And But so anyway, so Rob Zombie decided he's going to go and he's going to um, do his version of Halloween, which at first I was kind of like, oh god, but then again too, I was such a diehard Rob Zombie fan. I was kind of like, well, give him the benefit of the doubt. And then then also too, word comes out. Well, John Carpenter gave Rob Zombie, his seal of approval and said, yeah, give him a chance. He might do something really good with it. And so just let's wait and see what happens. Okay, now already I'm sure if you're watching the video, I'm pretty sure you already know this. Now there's a video on YouTube that it's been circulated around for many years now. It's called "How Rob Zombie Destroyed the Halloween Franchise," and I know that video is very polarizing too. A lot of people hate that video, a lot of people love it, a lot of people feel it makes a lot of valid points and things like that. But see, in that video, what ends up becoming a problem is that we keep seeing these interviews where Rob Zombie is contradicting himself. And ultimately, that's what ends up leading to. See, right now, that's the thing. That's why, like, when I did my 3 from Hell or my 31 review, that's why I'm kind of going hard trying to defend Rob Zombie because right now, a lot of the horror audience cannot stand this guy. A lot of them are against him. They don't like his work. They don't, as it's like that's kind of the thing. It's like right now, he could go out and make the best horror film ever. And there are people who are still going to hate him because of it was his overall attitude, between about these movies. It did not help the situation at all. And on one moment, and then if you watch that video and then through numerous interviews and things like that, Rob Zombie is constantly contradicting himself. At one point he's saying that, like in one interview, he said that it's even on here. It's on the bonus material where Rob Zombie said that he talked to John Carpenter out of respect and to let him know what was going on. And he said that even though John Carpenter was not creatively involved, that Carpenter said, hey, go for it, man. Make it your movie. I support you, things like that. Then in another interview, I believe is on that Halloween Inside Story documentary. I think that's what it was, where they interview Rob Zombie again. And then this time he says, John Carpenter offered me no support whatsoever. He is very cold and very distant, just like, whatever. It was like, yeah, he wasn't there for me. He didn't offer me any support. So things like that. Then in one interview, he says, well, I'm not going to explain Michael Myers because it's hard to, explain that. It's just what he is and everything. Then in another interviews, well, I'm going to go and I'm going to explain everything. Then in, one point he talks about how he is such a great fan of the original, but then another interview he keeps talking, well, these are all the things that bugs me. How come Michael Myers drives a car? How come Michael Myers does this? How come, I always hated the character of Dr. Loomis because he always seemed like he was crazy and drunk, and it's like no wonder people wouldn't believe him. Things like that. So, and then when people talk to Rob Zombie about it, he was just always like, well, I'm going to do what I'm going to do. You don't like it? Fuck you. I'm going to make my movie. If you don't like it, eat a dick. That was always his attitude. And that's ultimately kind of what ended up leading to his undoing because personally, now I could be wrong about this, but I honestly I think had that had not happened, I think if Rob Zombie had approached, the criticism differently and things like that, I think over time, I think this would have been better accepted. Like I said, I could be totally wrong about that. People would be like, oh my God, you really are out of your freaking mind. But I think so. I think over time people would have accepted this, because of the fact that it is different and that, I mean, look at like the Dawn of the Dead remake. I mean, now that's considered one of the much better remakes that's come out in recent years. And the reason why is because Zack Snyder, James Gunn, the people involved with that, they decided that, they wanted to go and do, um, they wanted to carry some elements from the original Dawn of the Dead, but make it a different movie, much like what Rob Zombie did here. But they never turn around, like James Gunn and Zack Snyder, they always praise the original Dawn of the Dead, but they never turn around and say, well, I thought this was stupid. Why does this happen? Why does that happen? And this and that and the other thing. And, so there's all that. They always praise the movie. They never turn around and look down on it. That's what Rob Zombie did. And that's not really something you do when you're remaking a movie that no one wanted remade in the first place. You don't sit there and start, if you have problems with it, that's your thing, but, and that's kind of gotten to be a thing over the years. Like defenders of this movie, they keep saying, it's like, well, yeah, how come Michael Myers drives a car and all that kind of stuff? It's like, here's the problem, man. You're better off not doing that, to be truthfully honest with you, because when you're sitting there, you're defending that, and You say, how come Michael Myers drives a car? And then it's like, well, in the original movie, Michael Myers was supernatural. He's the devil. He's the boogeyman. He's evil incarnate. In this movie, Michael Myers is just a serial killer, and he's just a person. So it's like, oh, okay, so you have such a problem. See, that's the thing. You said, how come Michael Myers drives a car? Oh, okay, so you have such a problem with a supernatural character driving a car, but in this movie that's supposed to be 100% completely reality based, in the span of one night, this guy can pretty much, when he finally gets his chance, either like in the theatrical cut, either he breaks his chains, turns into the Incredible Hulk, kills everybody, or in the director's cut, which is what this is, he, kind of takes his sweet ass time. See, that's one of the things too. I'll get to that. But he takes his sweet ass time stopping a rape, and then turns around and starts just killing everybody in the asylum, kills the orderlies, kills the guards, kills the nurses and all that kind of stuff. And here's the problem: like in this movie, Rob Zombie he's like, I don't really want you to care for Laurie Strode. I don't want you to care for any Brackett or any of those characters. I don't want to make Loomis out to be a hero. I want you to care about Michael Myers. I want you to sympathize with him. I want you to be on his side. Well, you're kind of going pretty well about that, and it's almost making sense until you got the character of Danny Trejo that he's really nice to Michael Myers. He's kind. He treats him with respect and everything else. Now Michael Myers on this same night, waits for Danny Trejo to show up just so he can kill him and smash his head in with a TV. So it's like he could wipe out everybody in this insane asylum and let out the other prisoners or patients. Then he can walk over to the truck wash so he can kill Big Joe Grizzly so he can get the jumpsuit. And then he can walk 100 miles to Haddonfield because Udo Kier's character says that in here, that, it's 100 miles away to Haddonfield. And so apparently he could be there by 8 o'clock in the morning, walk 100 miles in the pitch black night and be there at 8 o'clock in the morning so that, he can follow his sister around to stalk her at school all day. But he's also got to make sure he takes that time to go and, get the headstone from the cemetery, things like that. And, so that's kind of the thing. Okay, my point is that for all the things that Rob Zombie said that he felt was wrong with the original movie and questions that he felt that he needed to answer, he turned around. Yes, he answers some of those questions, but it doesn't answer the questions for the original movie. But at the same time, though, too, he ends up opening way more questions to his movies that need answering. So it's kind of like, so that's all what I'm saying, though. Okay, it's like, um, I have a theory. If I was to ever talk to Rob Zombie about this, I would ask him, like, if you, because, if you watch any of the documentaries about the making of the original Halloween, it was clear that the whole idea was meant to be that John Carpenter and Deborah Hill were hired by Irwin Yablans to make a grindhouse exploitation horror film called The Babysitter Murders. But, once Irwin Yablans decided he wanted to call the movie Halloween, then John Carpenter and Deborah Hill said, can we, instead of just making a sleazy exploitation movie, can we try to make a genuinely good movie that's scary and frightening and all this? And they did, and that's what they achieved. And I wonder if, I would ask Rob Zombie, were you like disappointed maybe when you saw Halloween and it wasn't the grindhouse sleaze fest you were expecting, and you decided when you had the chance you wanted to do, that's the version you wanted to see, and so you decided to make it? I would ask him that. I could be totally wrong about that. Wouldn't be the first time I was wrong, but anyway, so getting back to it, one thing I definitely say I do like about this situation is that in this version, the Rob Zombie does, have the Michael Laurie connection of brother and sister a little more organically in this movie. So, I will give him praise for that. But then again, too, it's like, well, defenders of the original Halloween and the original Halloween 2 would say, well, okay, so, um, it's like the problem with the sequel that was never planned was it was never planned. But anyway, though, so, all right, this one goes more into the backstory of Michael Myers, but this doesn't answer the question for the original movie. This is its own thing. In this version, Michael Myers is a boy who is, I'm sorry, I know it took me this long to get around to it, but in this version, Michael Myers is a young boy. He's mistreated by his family. His mother is a stripper. He's got this, I don't know if he's just a stepfather or the mom's boyfriend, but the guy's like, abusing him, verbally abusing him constantly. His sister treats him like dirt. He's got the one baby sister, Lori, who's the only one he has any affection or affinity for. And so he's getting bullied at school, and then pretty much he pretty much becomes the stereotypical textbook example of a serial killer. We find out that he tortures and kills animals and things like that. And then finally, he's got a bully that's messing with him, and so finally he decides to move on to from animals to humans. And then you have the Halloween night where he murders his sister, but not just his sister, but he murders her boyfriend and the mom's boyfriend while the mom is out stripping, and the baby is there, so he gets taken away and put into the sanitarium for many, many years. You got Dr. Loomis, who Malcolm McDowell, and one second, okay? I've heard so many people bash Malcolm McDowell, saying that he was like the worst choice for Loomis and everything. I don't agree with that. I think Malcolm McDowell is a genuinely good actor. Now, I've heard some people say, well, he plays much better villains than he does, heroic characters. But the thing is, I think given the right material, I think Malcolm McDowell really could have done it. And, he could have really made this something good. But it's just the material he was given. And from my understanding, Rob Zombie said that he based his character of Dr. Loomis off of Vincent Bugliosi. If you know anything about Rob Zombie, he's a huge Charles Manson supporter and things like that. And he felt that Bugliosi exploited the whole Manson murder thing. He felt that Bugliosi railroaded Charles Manson and did it so he could be famous and make money and all this stuff. So that's why in this version, that's why the character of Dr. Loomis is more about writing books and selling books and things like that. So take with that information what you will, but when you're getting to it though, Loomis, when Michael Myers breaks out, he does spring into action, and I see glimpses of what I thought could have been a really good follow up to Donald Pleasance. It's like the potential was there, but just I just feel like it just wasn't enough. It's like he didn't. If he had been written to be that heroic character that Donald Pleasance was meant to be, even though if Donald Pleasance seemed crazy, but and it's like that's the problem though too, is when you make in this version, when you make Michael Myers when you make him human, you take away the supernatural element. A lot of the dialogue that Malcolm McDowell says seems really, really ridiculous. Like when he's giving the whole when he's saying line for line the speech that Donald Pleasance gives in the original movie. It's like, I met him 15 years ago, and he had the blackest eyes, the devil's eyes, and all that kind of. It doesn't. It just seems over the top. It doesn't, because in the original movie it makes more sense because you're talking about a supernatural character, not a human being. But anyway, though, so one thing I will say, okay, the elements that I like about this movie is that yeah, it's got a pretty big size body count. You do have quite a few interesting faces in here. I know a lot of people didn't like that idea. Let's see here. That's the thing. It would take me hours to go through this. I'm trying to get through this as fast as I can. I haven't even talked about the second movie yet. But anyway, so yeah, I mean, I like this because it goes further than the original movie, but that doesn't. It's got a bigger body count. The kills are more violent, more brutal, more gory. You have infinitely more nudity. Got the one thing I think everybody really liked to see was Danielle Harris topless. That was nice, but I think some people will probably complain though too about that. They'd be like, "Well, the thing is, it's all friggin' dark. You can't all shaky can. You can't see anything hardly." But you got Christina Cleave full frontal, so that was kind of nice too. So yeah. So I mean, that's the thing I like. This is if you want kind of like a dirtier, nastier version of Halloween. But the thing is, it's like I think with both movies you can enjoy them both for what they are. You can enjoy the original Halloween for being the genuinely scary, well made, more restrained horror film that's more built on suspense and scares. But you could like this movie too for being violent, over the top, sleazy exploitation movie. So yeah, so I don't know. It's okay. The first scene though I can do without is like the whole scene in the kitchen where everybody's just screaming and cursing up a storm. That was a little too much, but ultimately at the end of the day, I don't ultimately hate this movie. But like I said, personally, I just think that Rob Zombie does a whole lot better when he works from his own material instead of just trying to reinterpret somebody else's. But so anyway, so that's that for that movie. Now we're going to talk about H2, Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, and this one here. All right, There we go, right there. Halloween 2. So the thing about this movie, oh boy, where do we begin? Now this one is, by a lot of people's standards, this one is definitely considered the beyond worst movie in the entire franchise. And I think, and I can understand why. I mean, the whole white horse thing. Okay, now all of a sudden, now Michael Myers is now Jason Voorhees because now he has mommy issues and things like that. It's like that was more of a Jason thing. That's not a Michael Myers thing. So now, so now Michael in his head keeps seeing Jason, or Michael Myers keeps seeing his mom with a white horse all the time. She's telling him to go kill and things like. And I understand the idea is supposed to be we're supposed to be seeing inside the mind of a psychopath. I get that. Now we have Laurie Strode. It's a couple of years later, and she's really fallen apart. She's not handling things well, and ultimately you kind of realize that the whole thing is supposed to be Laurie's descent into madness. How the actions of her brother affected her and things like that. And so, but what ends up becoming the problem though is that even though Scout Taylor Compton, I think she did the best she could with what she had, but this girl was Scout Taylor Compton. I think she's earned some respect from the fact that she just stepped up and tried to fill Jamie Lee Curtis's shoes, even though she doesn't do it. She doesn't do it. Okay, nobody's gonna outdo Jamie Lee. We already know that. But just the fact that she tried her best and she did the best she could with the material given her. And I think people applaud just the bravery that she had just to do that, even though it, as far as most people are concerned, no, that shit doesn't work at all. But anyway, so she's now living with Sheriff Brackett and Annie. And I got to be honest, okay, in my opinion, the two best actors out of both of Rob Zombie's films, both of these movies, has to be Brad Dourif and Danielle Harris. Those two are great. And I have to disagree with anybody who's, oh, Danielle Harris, she can't act for shit. No, I think she was really good in this movie. And that's one of the things I think was kind of interesting, too. I think that's why I have a little bit of a soft spot for Halloween 2 is the fact that Rob Zombie, for the first time, it seems like he's really writing more interesting characters. The fact that, like, the character of Annie, she's going through, it's like, her character is like she's going through the trauma of what happened from the first movie too, but she's strong enough to handle it. And she's also like trying to take care of her dad, and she's trying to take care of Laurie. She's trying to deal with things and everything else. And she's, doing the best she can. And Brad Dourif, as sheriff, he steals the show. Brad Dourif owns these movies. I think most people would agree with that. If there was ever a great actor in both of Rob Zombie's movies, it's Brad Dourif. You got the opening scene, which, that's the thing. A lot of people say, well, the hospital scene in Halloween 2 was actually pretty phenomenal. The chase through the hospital and everything else, even though people will be like, well, yeah, that's kind of more John Carpenter's thing, because it's a takeoff of Halloween 2. But anyway, so it's like, now this movie's more H2, it's more trippy. There's, good size body count. I think the one thing you could really, and that's the thing. I think when people say, I like, Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, I think people are like, why in the world would you ever like that movie? I think a lot of it has to do with just it's just the fact that, it is so completely different, from all the, because that's the problem. You go back and you look at all the other Halloween movies, even look at the one that came out last year. They're all trying to go back and try to recapture the magic of the original Halloween. And it's like, it's close, but it's just never enough. And Rob Zombie was, for the first time, was like, let's do something completely different. And even though a lot of people hate that, and, it's like, just because it's different doesn't mean it's good. I get that. But, I think that's what some people like about this. It's just the fact that it's not like any of the other Halloween movies. It completely strays from the formula and does its own thing. And, yeah. So ultimately, H2, it's okay. I like some parts of it. I have to say, I like it just a tiny little bit more than the first one. I know you're thinking I'm all out of my freaking mind, and sometimes I wonder if I am too, but I just think, in the first, I just think, because this is more Rob Zombie doing his thing. And like I said, I've said it several times already. I think he's better when he's doing his own material instead of trying to interpret somebody else's. And I think that's kind of what Rob Zombie should do. He should just stick to making his own kind of movies. That being said, I've read on the internet, the rumblings about what, at one point, Rob Zombie was attached to remake The Blob, and I remember hearing about that. and reading about what some of the details would have been, it's like, aside from it being a little too Night of the Creeps for my taste, it's like I think it would have been interesting to see what he would have done with that. But still, anyway, it never happened, never going to happen, so who cares? But ultimately, at the end of the day, that's just the way I feel about it. These movies, like I said, I really think Malcolm McDowell could have done better if given the right material. If Rob Zombie had really tried to make Loomis a hero, kind of like the way he was in the way Donald Pleasance played him. But in this one, he made, Loomis out to be an asshole and a jerk and all this other kind of stuff. Just more interested about selling books and getting laid and all that other kind of stuff. So, yeah, just personally, but, I think, like I said, I give props to Danielle Harris and Brad Dourif. I think the two of them give phenomenal performances. I think they do some of their best work in these movies. Let's see here. Some of the supporting cast is okay here and there. Like I said, I do applaud Scout Taylor Compton. It seems she has developed a bit of a following over the last few years, and I think that's why. I mean, because it's like Jamie Lee Curtis. There's no way you can follow that up. You just can't. But the fact that she did her own thing and tried to, she did step up to the plate and take the challenge. I think people applaud her for that much at least, and that's what kind of gets her praise and everything else. So, just yeah. I mean, I understand a lot of the criticisms with this, but I mean, obviously, that's just what my theory is. Like I said, I could be totally wrong about this, but I think that's what Rob Zombie really set out to do. Was that to him the original Halloween? I think he was disappointed in it, in that the fact it was not this sleazy, you know, gore soaked nude fest of blood and carnage and death and everything. And that's when he got the chance. He's all like, I want to make the version of Halloween that I wanted to see, and I think that's what he did. And for some people, that's what they prefer. It's but this movie here, the original Halloween, that's what we learned at the end of the day. Nothing is going to hurt that movie. It's everything that can be done to Halloween has been done. It's been remade, it's been parodied, it's been spit on, it's been looked down on, it's been sequelized so many times, it's been rebooted and everything else. At the end of the day, the original Halloween is immortal and nothing's going to hurt it. So, and that's the thing, even for, if there are people out there who love the Rob Zombie movies, let them love them, because, you know, trust me, the majority is still on John Carpenter's side. But anyway, I'm sorry. I know this video went on way too long, but it's like, these are really hard movies to talk. You can't really talk about these movies in just like 10 minutes. You gotta, there's a long history with these. There's a history of Rob Zombie and the way he handled things. And, a lot of people felt he wasn't particularly graceful about it. He, seemed kind of very easily offended, and always felt like he's being personally attacked, and just kind of responded with always just shut the fuck up, I'm the director, I'm going to do what I want, like it, eat shit. Just he always kind of seemed like he had that you know and that's the thing, you don't have to take my word for it. Go look at the videos, go look at the video interviews with him and stuff. But so yeah, so oh boy, and this was really rough to talk about. But Rob Zombie's Halloween films, they have elements I like, but I'm going to be honest, I still love the original way more. I love the original Halloween 2 way more, but for the aspect that it is different from the other Halloween movies, I think I like it for that. And like I said, just certain elements that I do enjoy these movies, but yeah, sorry, I mean, I'm not trying to put down anybody who likes the original movie. I'm not trying to put down anybody who likes these movies. Everybody's got their own taste, and some people prefer these movies over the original. That's their choice. But for me, no, I'm John Carpenter forever, and I will be. So even with all the other ones that they're going to make and stuff, I still don't think anything is going to beat the original Halloween, the original Halloween 2. But anyway, yeah, that's pretty much about all I got to say about that. So I think I went on way too long. The video is already almost 30 minutes, but so yeah, so they're enjoyable in their own way, but I'll take the original. They're okay in their own way, but I'll still take the original movies any day of the week. So that's going to do it. So if anybody took the time to watch all this, I thank you for doing it. I appreciate you for doing it. I'm sorry for all the rambling. I'm sorry you couldn't get my points across in a lot less time, but thank you all for watching this. I honestly hope you enjoyed the video, and I know this is probably gonna be one of my least popular videos, because people either love or hate these movies. So, but anyway, so if you took the time to watch this, I thank you for doing it. I appreciate you for doing it. If you enjoyed the video, please like. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the Body Bags channel. We got a lot of great guys doing great stuff. We got, a weekly reviewer every day of the week. I'm the Saturday reviewer, and yeah, all the guys are great. They're doing great reviews, great stuff. So come back and check us out. And until then, take care, and I'll see you next week. Bye bye.